On the scorching afternoon of August 15, 2006, the peace of Anderson Township shattered into chaos at Julf's Park. Liz Carroll made a frantic call to emergency services, and in a heartbeat, the world turned upside down as she informed the authorities that she blacked out at the park due to low blood pressure. And when she regained consciousness, Marcus Fiesel, her 3-year-old foster son, was missing.
Remember, the whole town was turned upside down looking for this little kid.
Liz Carroll was enjoying a day out in the park with 4 children.
I'm asking that anybody that saw me with my kids, or saw me, or saw Marcus, to please contact the authorities.
Panic swept through the community like wildfire, igniting a relentless search for the missing boy. With every passing minute, the urgency intensified, driving volunteers to scour every nook and cranny in a desperate bid to find Marcus and bring him home.
We suspected her from the very start.
Yet, amid the frenzied search, whispers of suspicion hung thick in the air, casting a sinister shadow over those closest to the child.
10 years ago this week, a 3-year-old boy went missing. Thousands of you helped look for Marcus Fiesel until we learned the 2 people trusted to protect him actually killed him.
Liz Carroll, the callous foster mother, David Carroll, the bipolar foster father, and Amy Baker, their lover.
David and Liz had a live-in lover, Amy Baker. David and Baker took Marcus's body to this old chimney.
As the sun set on the frantic search, hope dimmed with each passing hour. Then in a heart-wrenching twist, a few days later, Fiesel's incinerated were discovered on an 88-acre estate in Brown County, Ohio, shattering any lingering illusions of his safe return. Delve into the haunting saga of Marcus Fiesel, a young boy lost in the labyrinth of foster care, where shadows of neglect and betrayal loomed large.
Marcus lived, I believe, so others could live.
As the layers of his story unfold, witness the chilling depths of human depravity.
That was Marcus Fiesel. What's left of Marcus Fiesel would fit in this cup.
Witness the failings of a broken system and the resilience of the human spirit.
Today, the Invisible Kids Project wants to thank the hundreds of people who helped search for Fiesel.
Through the darkness, find a call to action, a reminder of the urgent need for compassion, vigilance, and advocacy for the most vulnerable among us.
Schlack says 80% of people who become foster parents quit within the first year.
Join us as we delve into a journey that challenges perceptions, stirs emotions, and beckons us to ask, how can we ensure that every child finds safety, love, and a chance to thrive?
Foster parents were at that point told that they had to report their own criminal activity.
Marcus Fiesel was a vibrant 3-year-old child living in Ohio. Despite his autism and special needs, he was described as a lively child who adored flowers and Bob the Builder. But his mother, Donna Trevino, struggled to cope with her responsibilities. She faced not only the challenge of raising 3 children alone, but also endured domestic violence. Police were frequent visitors to their home, which was infested with fleas and reeked of neglect. It actually smelled like feces in the house. Trevino, overwhelmed and unsupported, couldn't provide the care her children deserved. On September 29, 2005, police noticed bruising on Marcus Fiesel's left buttock. Upon investigation, they found out that Donna Trevino's youngest child's father had spanked Marcus, causing the bruising. Child Welfare Services had already investigated reports of abuse, so Trevino was under observation. In January 2006, Marcus climbed out of his second-story window and fell, fortunately escaping death. Then 4 years later, in April 2006, Marcus was found wandering the streets, narrowly avoiding being struck by a car. It took this close call for Trevino to realize she couldn't handle caring for her children. She gave up custody of all of them to Butler County, later attempting to regain custody of 2, but opting not to take Marcus back, ultimately terminating her rights to him. Marcus, at just 3 years old, was unwanted. During the summer of 2006, Liz and David Carroll resided in a single-family home on Valleywood Drive in Claremont County, Ohio. The Carrolls were licensed foster parents and daycare providers, their main source of income. Licensed by Lifeway for Youth, an agency placing foster children from Butler County, Ohio, the Carrolls also provided daycare services for Claremont County, receiving payment to care for Amy Baker's 3 children, often present in their home. Amy Baker will turn out to be a key witness in this case. To understand how she got entangled in this case, we need to first listen to her story in her words.
Would you state your name, please?
Amy Baker.
Amy had a difficult childhood.
Can you tell us your father's name
Robert Ramsey.
and your mother's name?
Teresa Chapman.
Are your parents married still?
No.
And could you tell us when they were divorced?
Around 1987.
You were around 6 years old at the time?
Yes.
Her childhood was so tumultuous that it greatly affected her studies.
How far did you go in school, Amy?
I completed my 9th grade year. I went to the middle of my 10th grade.
Difficulties followed her through to adulthood.
And since you completed the 9th grade there and halfway through the 10th grade, have you made any attempts to obtain a GED?
Yes.
And have you been successful in that?
No.
The only solace she had came from her children.
Do you have children, ma'am?
Yes.
And what are their names and ages?
Taylor, Brian, and Courtney. Taylor is 7.5. Courtney is 4, and Brian is 6.
She fell in love with Brian Baker and had 3 kids together. That's when her life started to turn for the good.
Your husband, Brian Baker, where did you meet him?
Through a couple of friends, and then I seen him at Holly Lanes.
Holly Lanes up outside Amelia?
Yes.
And did you get to know him at Holly Lanes?
Yeah.
And did you, for lack of a better word, fall in love with him out of those experiences at Holly Lanes?
Yes.
And then ultimately had the 3 children?
Yes.
While you were married and living together, was Brian a willing provider for you and your children?
Yes.
Well, overruled at this point.
Did you work during the time that the 2 of you were together?
I never kept a job.
But then financial trouble followed her into the marriage.
Were there times when the 2 of you fell on your face financially?
Yes.
And what did you do?
We went back to my mom's.
Did you and your children and your husband all move back in with your mom?
Yes.
And you say you were separated in when?
2003.
Her marriage eventually failed no matter how much she tried to reconcile with her husband.
Are you married?
Yes.
And your husband's name?
Brian Baker.
When were you married?
April 12th of 01.
And you are still married today?
Yes.
Have you been separated?
Yes.
For approximately how long?
3.5 years.
Have there been times during that 3.5 years where there were attempts to reconcile with your husband?
Yes.
Did you in fact move back in with your husband on a number of times during the past 4 years?
Twice.
But as of today, you are still married to him?
Yes.
Are your 3 children, is he the biological father of your 3 children?
Yes.
Not only did she lose her husband, but she also didn't have a place to stay, and because of that, she also lost the custody of her children.
Do you currently have physical control, custody of your children?
No.
Who does?
Children's Services.
And can you tell us when they were taken from you?
The 29th of August.
Of last year, 2006?
Yes.
And could you tell us why?
Because I was, they said I was homeless and jobless, and I subject my kids to domestic violence, and I knew about the disappearance of Marcus.
Her husband was an abusive father, and since she was homeless and her husband was unfit as a parent, the kids went to Child Protection Services. Her mission is to reunite with her children, but to do so, she needs a stable job.
How often do you see your children?
If it's not holidays, every Monday.
Once a week?
Yes.
Are you working on what is called a reunification plan?
Yes.
Are you currently working?
I was suspended from my job
And why was that?
because of this case.
And it was during this difficult time in her life when she lost her husband, lost her children, was homeless and unemployed when her life collided with Liz and David Carroll.
Now, when did you first meet Liz and David Carroll?
2005, when they started babysitting my kids.
She wanted a good daycare provided in her district while she worked on getting her life back on track.
What were you attempting to do at that time that you needed child care?
Get my GED.
And how many times a week was it necessary for you to employ child care so that you could do that?
2 times a week, 3 hours a day.
Now, you say your daughter, Taylor,
Yes.
was in Merwin Elementary.
Yes.
Did you tell them, the people at Jobs and Family Services, that you had what you were looking for with regard to the location of the child care that you were seeking?
Yes.
And what was that?
That I wanted her to be in, I wanted to find someone in Merwin School District so I didn't have to change my daughter's schools.
Okay, so you wanted child care somewhere in the area where she was going to school.
Yes.
And what did they tell you in that regard?
They gave me Liz's name.
They gave you Liz's name.
Mm-hmm.
When she visited the Carrolls, she was pleasantly surprised to see how happy of a family they were. She couldn't believe her luck in finding such a good daycare in her budget.
Now, how does that work? I mean, do you pay Liz? Obviously, you're getting some help. But, how does that work?
I just have a co-payment. The county pays her, gives her a voucher or a check or something.
All right, so do you bill the county, or does she bill the county, or do you know?
She bills the county.
All right, so if she provides daycare for your children, she bills the county, and there's some sort of co-payment that she's entitled to from you yourself.
Right.
Who determines what that co-payment is?
The county.
And how do they determine that?
Based on how much money I make or I was making at that time.
All right, now what was your co-payment when you began your involvement with that daycare in the spring of 2005?
$2.
$2 how often?
Every month.
So for $2 a month, she would provide daycare for your children.
Right.
And then the county would pay her whatever that was worth, other than your $2.
Yes.
Things were starting to look up for Amy. She got excellent daycare for her kids, and she now got busy with GED prep and even landed a job.
Were you leaving all 3 of your children there?
Yes.
And how many days a week did it start?
2 days.
And did it expand to be more than 2 days?
Yes.
And what did it go to?
Up to like 4 to 6 days. Because I took a job and I didn't work every day at the cleaners because I had to take off either Tuesday or Thursday because I still try to get my GED, but I had to work one of those days. So she would have a short day on either Tuesday or Thursday where I would only go to get my GED, and the other days I would go to work.
Okay.
I would drop them off at 5:30 and pick them up around 4:30 or 5.
So 5:30 in the morning you would drop them off?
Yes.
And pick them up at 4 or 5 in the afternoon?
Yes.
Now you say the cleaners, during this time there while the children were being watched on Bennett Road, where did you work?
At the Appearance Plus cleaners.
All right, and any place else?
I had a second job at Country Inn as a waitress, but she didn't watch my kids for that.
Okay, so she was just watching your kids while you were at GED and Appearance Plus cleaners.
Yes.
So what started as a daycare for 3 hours a day, 2-3 times a week, has now blown into a fully fledged all-day service. Amy, already working 2 jobs, now found a 3rd job.
Did you subsequently take a job somewhere else?
Yes.
And where was that?
At Salem Woods Nursing Home.
All right, and did there come a time when your $2 per month copay changed?
Yes.
And tell them about that, please.
It changed from $2 to $183
Per month?
Yes.
So it went up $185 per month?
It went up $181 a month.
Per month.
Yes.
After her co-job went up, Liz devised a plan to help her out, all while helping herself even more.
Now, did you ultimately work out some form of deal with Liz regarding that copay?
Yes.
And what was that?
That if someone else watches my kids 1 or 2 days a week, I didn't have to pay a copay.
And by someone else watching your kids, who did you meet?
My mom or my sisters.
Okay, and what would Liz do then?
I would just sign them in and out when they wasn't there, and then she would just turn it in so she can...
Obviously, they both financially benefited from this arrangement, but Amy claims it was all Liz's idea.
Did Liz tell you what she would do in lieu of your copay?
Yes.
And what did she tell you?
That she wouldn't have me pay a copay if someone else watched my kids for me 1 or 2 days out of the month or once a week, to where it would equal up to where the copay was being paid for, basically.
And did she tell you she would go ahead and bill?
Yes.
For those days, even though she was not watching?
Yes.
And you, in fact, signed sheets indicating your kids were there when they were not there?
Right.
And you knew that was wrong?
Yes.
Being accomplices brought them closer. Amy Baker started to get entangled in the web of Liz and David Carroll.
Did this, during this time period, throughout 2005, was this pretty much a legitimate babysitting relationship?
Right.
Did you believe Liz was a daycare provider?
Yes.
Did the two of you get along well?
Yes.
Did you and Liz become friends?
Yes.
Was David around the house a lot at the end?
Yes.
Did you consider him to be a friend?
Yes.
Some say all three of them became more than just friends. But before we delve into their newfound love connections, we need to come back to the story of Marcus Fiesel and how he got placed into this mess. In May 2006, Marcus Fiesel, age 3, was placed with the Carrolls by Lifeway for Youth. During the vetting process, Lifeway informed the Carrolls of Marcus's developmental needs, emphasizing he required constant supervision. They were also informed about available respite care if needed. Despite these warnings, the Carrolls accepted Marcus's placement. However, Marcus's stay with them proved more challenging than anticipated. Lifeway caseworkers visited each foster child placement weekly. On August 3, 2006, a Lifeway caseworker visited Liz Carroll and Marcus Fiesel. An investigation into Lifeway for Youth uncovered discrepancies in their foster care training and supervision processes. Marcus, with his special needs, required additional care, raising questions about the Carrolls' qualifications. It's baffling how individuals described by the Carrolls themselves as mentally unstable and morally corrupt were deemed fit to foster a vulnerable child. Butler County unwittingly placed Marcus in a house of horrors, a tragic outcome that leaves us questioning how such oversight could occur. When Lifeway for Youth placed Marcus with the Carrolls, they didn't know about David Carroll's mental health issues or that Amy Baker wasn't just a client, but she was also Carroll's live-in girlfriend. It all started when David began making suggestive comments in passing.
Did Dave begin to make comments to you which, in a sense, ambiguously, were suggestive?
Yes.
And could you give us examples of the type of comments you're talking about?
Do you want to stay all night? Just comments. It's like I would asking me like if I wanted to be with him and Liz.
And did you take those seriously?
No.
And nothing, at least at that point, nothing grew out of them?
No.
Were they the kind of comments that, you know, if you had stepped up and called him on it, they could have been sloughed off as innocent?
Yeah, I did. I didn't necessarily call him on, but I just laughed it off like you're crazy, you're lying. And then I guess he didn't think, like, he knew that I wouldn't do that. Like, I didn't want to do that stuff, and so he just blew it off.
But then, on a day out with the kids on a skating ring, Liz started making advancement towards her.
At the skating rink, were there actions by the defendant, Liz Carroll, which began to cause you to see her in a different light?
Yes.
Later, it emerged that both Liz and David had an unusual sexual arrangement with Amy Baker. Both Liz and David Carroll engaged in relations with Baker. Given David Carroll's mental health concerns and their unconventional living situation, they should have been deemed unfit to care for Marcus. In June 2006, David Carroll was arrested for domestic violence, though the charge was dismissed. However, the Carrolls failed to report the arrest to Lifeway for Youth as required. David Carroll started hating Marcus. This grown man felt uncomfortable with the attention the little boy received from Amy Baker and his wife. He even temporarily left the residence, unsure if he wanted to remain a foster parent. On August 22, 2006, Liz Carroll made a public plea for Marcus's safe return, expressing her anguish over his absence. Little did anyone know at the time, Marcus had already tragically died alone, without food, water, or care. Discrepancies in Liz Carroll's story raised doubts, and under scrutiny, the police uncovered the truth, revealing the horrifying fate that befell Marcus. On August 10, 2006, Marcus's social worker visited the Carrolls' home, but was told that Marcus was sick. The social worker left without seeing Marcus. It was later determined that the caseworker didn't physically check on Marcus's welfare. On August 15th, Liz Carroll went to Yolfs Park with 4 children, a child she had with David Carroll, another foster child, a toddler she was babysitting, and Marcus Fiesel. At the same time, David Carroll and Amy Baker took the rest of the kids to the YMCA. Liz passed out, prompting a 911 call. After Liz was revived, she told authorities about Marcus, triggering a massive search. Hundreds of volunteers scoured the area, but Marcus remained missing. The search continued on August 16th, with police searching the Carrolls' home and removing items. On August 17th, police intensified the search, urging anyone who saw Marcus to come forward. The search continued over the following days, with Liz Carroll leaving the hospital on August 18th. On August 20th, Marcus's siblings were removed from their foster parents by Butler County authorities after their foster father received a DUI. Since a child went missing on her watch, Liz Carroll lost her daycare certificate on August 21st. Police released more photos of Marcus on August 23rd and removed some children from Lifeway for use-trained foster parents. On August 22nd, Liz Carroll appealed to the public for help.
That anybody that saw me with my kids or saw me or saw Marcus to please contact the authorities.
But now Hamilton County Prosecutor Joe Dieters wasn't buying the Carroll story.
We suspected her from the very start.
Just one day after his disappearances, Dieters met with Simon Lice, the Hamilton County Sheriff. Dieters asked him a simple question. What are the likelihoods of a stranger kidnapping occurring precisely when the mother loses consciousness? On August 24th, it was confirmed that the caseworker didn't see Marcus on August 10th, 5 days before his disappearance.
Now, the Hamilton County prosecutor is sharing how the most crucial hours of the search played out.
I said to the detectives, when was the last time anyone outside this family saw him alive?
Until now, the search for Marcus was around the park, but it was time to focus their resources on the one closest to Marcus.
Until this point, the search for the autistic toddler was focused in and around Juliff's Park.
The detectives said, well, they went to Kentucky for a family reunion.
Hamilton County detectives made their way to Kentucky to investigate whether Marcus had attended the family reunion there. It turns out he never went there. Now Joe Dieters was sure Liz Carroll was hiding something, and that's when Joe made a bold move.
We served Amy Baker, who was the live-in girlfriend, and Liz Carroll simultaneously in 2 separate police cars with forthwith subpoenas, which requires them to come to the grand jury immediately.
Liz and Amy received subpoenas, requiring them to go before a grand jury right away. Dieters believed Amy Baker might confess, knowing she wasn't legally accountable for Marcus. They provided her with a public defender, brought her to a conference room, and asked her to explain what happened to Marcus. She stuck to the same story they've been pushing for the past 3 weeks.
Prosecutors believed Baker would talk.
I said, ma'am, you don't know me, but you're going to go in front of that grand jury in about 5 minutes, and if you lie to that grand jury, you're going to prison.
After cautioning her about potential prison time for lying to the grand jury, Baker requested to speak with her public defender. An hour and a half later, her attorney approached Dieters, looking visibly shaken. The attorney approached Dieters and said, "She's going to tell you what happened. She's ready to do that." Amy confessed that during the weekend of August 4th to 6, 2006, Liz Carroll planned to attend her family reunion in Kentucky, leaving Marcus behind. She made it clear she didn't want Marcus to accompany them. In the past, the Carrolls had left Marcus alone at home, wrapped in a blanket and secured with tape, while they ran errands or attended events. This time, Marcus was left alone in a closet, wrapped in a blanket, secured with and abandoned. They could hear him screaming in the closet when they left. It's a chilling scenario to contemplate. 3 adults callously leaving a child alone without food or water. If they didn't want to take Marcus to Kentucky, they could have arranged respite care. It's a heart-wrenching end to a young life, a tragedy that shocks the conscience and begs for justice. They arrived at the reunion on Friday evening and enjoyed themselves until early Sunday morning. David Carroll began feeling guilty about Marcus and insisted they return home. They arrived around 6 a.m. to find Marcus in the closet. Rejecting Amy Baker's suggestion to call 911, they chose to dispose of the body and conceal Marcus's death. They buried the body in the chimney of a burnt-down house in Brown County, Ohio. Afterwards, David Carroll and Amy Baker drove onto the Maysville Bridge, and David threw the bag of remains into the Ohio River. After Amy Baker's confession, Dieters summoned Liz Carroll to testify. Liz claimed Marcus had been taken from Juliff's Park.
Then Liz Carroll got her turn to talk.
And she was telling that same kidnapping story that she's been telling for the last, 4 weeks.
However, prosecutors knew no one had spotted Marcus with the Carrolls at the family reunion in Kentucky. "Where was Marcus when you went to your family reunion?" the prosecutor asked her.
Investigators learned Marcus never went to Kentucky. Word of that quickly got to prosecutors.
And she just froze because she knew we knew now.
Her worst fear was realized when the prosecutor pressed, "You wrapped that kid up and threw him in a closet, didn't you?" Liz admitted to leaving Marcus in the closet in a playpen wrapped in a blanket. She also confessed he was upon their return from Kentucky, and Baker informed her she and David Carroll of Marcus's body by. Liz didn't admit to wrapping Marcus in the blanket herself. Ultimately, the Carrolls faced charges in both Claremont and Hamilton counties. Baker received immunity for her testimony.
Amy Baker's testimony also led detectives to Marcus's remains. She said she drove with Liz Carroll's husband David to this chimney in Brown County.
In their statements, both Liz and David blamed Amy Baker for Marcus's death. They were indicted on multiple charges, including involuntary manslaughter and child endangerment. David Carroll also faced a charge of abuse of a corpse. They were arrested, and investigators searched for Marcus's remains in Brown County. On August 29, 2006, additional indictments were issued against the Carrolls in Hamilton County. David and Liz were charged with 1 count each of making false alarms and inducing panic. Additionally, David faced a charge of gross abuse of a corpse, while Liz faced 2 additional charges of perjury. On September 6, 2006, a Claremont County grand jury indicted David Carroll on 8 criminal counts. The charges included murder and gross abuse of a corpse. Following Liz and David Carroll's arrest for Marcus Fiesel's murder in August 2006, Liz went to trial while David accepted a plea deal. He's serving a 16-year-to-life sentence and may be eligible for parole in a few years. Liz, however, rejected the same deal and opted to go to court, a decision that would prove to be a grave mistake. On February 12, 2007, Liz Carroll's trial commenced. Amy Baker became the prosecutor's star witness against Liz. Many questioned why Amy Baker wasn't charged as an accessory, but prosecutors relied on her testimony to build their case against the Carrolls. Liz and David blamed Amy Baker for Marcus's death, asserting that he died before they left for the reunion, and Liz wasn't present when it occurred.
What I really have a problem with is that my wife wasn't even home when any of this occurred, when any of it occurred. And she went on a stand and said that my wife and I taped them up and we went on a family reunion. That's the problem I have, because that's not exactly what happened at all. Exactly what happened is we left them when we went to the family reunion. But
since David took the deal, his account was later recorded in an interview from the prison. Therefore, it was Amy's words against Liz.
Amy Baker is seen laughing before the grand jury made its decision, but there was nothing for her to smile about afterward.
Amy Baker questioned, "Everybody wants to ruin my credibility so Dave and Liz can walk free and kill me. Is that what people want?" She insisted that the right people knew how Marcus died and who was responsible, emphasizing that it wasn't her. Amy also expressed frustration at the negative portrayal of her in the media, stating, "I didn't save no whales or anything, but I don't want people thinking I'm some kind of a monster." Baker revealed that her relationship with the Carrolls wasn't as twisted as it may seem. Her affair with David Carroll began after he separated from his wife, and they briefly lived with his mother. Regarding Marcus, Amy claimed that she never interacted with him and witnessed David Carroll's mistreatment of him. She claimed he would trip Marcus as he walked by or put him in a cold bath. Amy described cleaning up after Marcus, who had smeared feces around the room, and how the Carrolls had previously bound him. She emphasized that Marcus mostly stayed in his room and loved everyone, not just Liz. Amy denied involvement in wrapping Marcus up before the family reunion.
So I ran downstairs and I told my wife, I was like, he's dead. She was like, who's dead? And she was smiling at me because she didn't know, she thought I was kidding. And then after she seen my face was white, she started freaking out and crying. I was like, what? She ran upstairs behind me. As soon as she turned the corner, she seen him. And she dropped her knees and she looked at me and she said, "What did you do?" Like blaming me. I said, "I didn't do this." I said, "She did it." Talking to Amy, and Amy was like, "I just forgot about him. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry."
David claims that it was Amy who stopped them from calling the cops.
My wife immediately goes to grab the phone. Amy grabs the phone. She's like, no, we can't. She's like, "We can't call the cops. You can't call the cops." And Liz's like, "Well, I'm calling the ambulance. I'm calling the ambulance." Amy's going, "No, he's already dead. It's not going to do any good to call the cops, the ambulance, or anything else, whatever." And Liz is like, we got to. So Amy grabbed the phone from her. Her and Amy got into like a little argument. Amy started pushing her and grabbed the phone out of her hand. And she started saying, "You seen what happened to Marcus? That can happen to your kids too if anything like this gets out."
She admitted she should have called the police when she witnessed Marcus being wrapped up, but she couldn't explain why she didn't.
I honestly believe it was an accident. I believe that it was an accident that she done that. You know, I don't think she did it on purpose. I think that she just was just made a stupid mistake. But, you know, it still don't negate the fact that she needs to fess up to her responsibilities, take responsibility for what she done.
Discussing the disposal of Marcus's body, Amy claimed that David Carroll suggested burning it to eliminate evidence. They chose an abandoned chimney in Brown County for the task. Afterward, they informed Liz Carroll of their actions. In the aftermath of Marcus's death, Baker noticed changes in the household dynamics. Sleep patterns shifted, and they held a yard sale. To prevent the other children from becoming suspicious about Marcus's absence, Baker claimed the Carrolls placed a teddy bear in his bed or told them he was at school or visiting his mother. On the day of Marcus's staged disappearance, Baker knew Liz Carroll planned to feign passing out at the park. During Liz Carroll's trial, the courtroom was packed as Baker testified against her. On February 21, 2007, Liz Carroll was found guilty on all charges and sentenced to 54 years to life in prison. Despite her incarceration, Liz Carroll attempted to shift blame onto the prosecution for her predicament. But the legal troubles for Amy Baker were far from over. Well, the murder occurred in Ohio. And Amy Baker had immunity in Ohio, but the thing is that the body was burnt in Kentucky, and Amy made no deal in Kentucky.
Amy Baker is at the center of the case, but prosecutors from 2 states took center stage in a face-off between Ohio and Kentucky.
A legal battle ensued between the prosecutors in Ohio and Kentucky.
The reason to prosecute is when there's a crime, correct?
The right reason to prosecute?
Is when there's a crime that's committed in your jurisdiction, correct?
Every crime? Is that what you do? Every crime? You don't use prosecutor's discretion?
Mr. White, believe it or not, I get to ask the questions today,
okay.
and you get to answer.
Okay, I'll tell you what. I'll answer that question. Sometimes if that's the right reason to prosecute when a crime occurs.
Okay.
Right. Sometimes you have to grant immunity in order to solve the crime, and you should know that.
The real question was whether the deal made in Ohio would withstand in Kentucky.
Anytime tell either Mr. White or Mr. Woody Breyer that you were going to honor the deal that they made in Ohio?
Absolutely not.
While Amy Baker received immunity from Ohio, Kentucky sought to press charges against her due to jurisdiction over the section of the Ohio River where she and David Carroll disposed of Marcus in 2006. The opposition against letting Amy Baker maintain her immunity didn't just come from Kentucky, but even Liz Carroll opposed it from behind bars.
I am appalled by Woody Breyer's affidavits. It would not surprise me if Woody Breyer is lying.
Liz made this statement from Marysville Prison. However, in 2008, Kentucky dropped all charges against Baker. Despite her involvement in covering up the murder, she never faced any time for her role in the crime. Liz Carroll's lack of remorse is disturbing, especially considering the gravity of Marcus's tragic death. It's troubling to see her deflecting blame onto others instead of taking responsibility for her actions.
And who did it? She did. And you know, they say you wouldn't treat a dog like that. And you know what? She wouldn't. She took the dog with her. She took the dog with her.
Lifeway for Youth faced severe consequences.
Ohio also revoked Lifeway for Youth's license. That's the foster care company that placed Marcus with the Carrolls, and Ohio Job and Family Services says it has increased mandatory training for caseworkers and put greater emphasis on placing foster kids in permanent adoptive homes.
After Marcus's tragic death, A thorough investigation ensued into Butler County officials and Lifeway for Youth. Both agencies claimed they had no knowledge of the Carrolls being unfit foster parents, as they appeared suitable on the surface. However, the investigation unearthed crucial oversights. Lifeway and Butler County missed that David Carroll was bipolar and had fathered children with 2 other women who happened to be sisters. This occurred while Liz was expecting their first child together. After conducting an investigation, Hamilton County eventually removed children from Lifeway's care and placed them in other homes. Marcus's case sparked reforms in foster care practices. While there's no perfect system, the goal is for counties to collaborate with licensed agencies to protect the welfare of young people. Sadly, Marcus was failed by so many individuals. It all began with his mother, who couldn't care for him and eventually relinquished her parental rights. If he hadn't died, he would be turning 20 this year. However, amidst these reforms, there were also attempts to capitalize on the tragedy. Marcus's birth mother, Donna Trevino, filed a lawsuit seeking $5 million compensation, and in February 2007, settlement funds of $200,000 were directed towards the care of her other children under strict supervision. Marcus Fiesel's tragic story sheds light on the importance of protecting vulnerable children and ensuring their safety in foster care. It's chilling to learn that, on average, around 500 children lose their lives at the hands of their own parents each year in America. Through legal reforms and increased awareness, his legacy serves as a catalyst for positive change in child welfare systems. Remember, our children are our future, and it's our duty to nurture and support them with love and compassion. If you found this story impactful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more thought-provoking content. And always remember, a little love and care can make a world of difference in a child's life. Thanks for watching.